or USF Osher. For those who missed the class or would like to get a more detailed version, I'm going to record this. Okay. Now, we talked about the Orientalist, and the first class, we talked about the 8,000 peak mountains and the challenge and the trail.
Oh, another thing, the number of bills you have makes it
Sorry.
sad. Oh, sorry.
Most of the, yeah, I would just take that out and improve my, we talked about geology. The loss of the Buddhism of disappearing taken over by the Brahmin disciples. And we touched upon the great about the Brahmin Jones, it's a true polymath. Then after that, obviously, someone misled with what I was. So, but this is just gives you an idea about the linguistic. For those of you similarly, in Sanskrit also there are forms. But, like simple F, like going, there are this simpler and the plural. So the chama, the chama. So this is just established today. Obviously, this has progressed tremendously. Thank you for the last couple of days that the emphasis of Harvard and David Wright. A lot of work with peopling of Europe and the Indian subcontinent and the linguistic language that started with the Himalaya culture. Finding they have localized that by the linguistic origin of the languages in. Again, the linguists are alone how can you tell this, but obviously that work is, but I don't want to digress too much into this, but it shows that the reduction of separate science is upsetting the apple cart of other disciplines. Okay, and this is showing the statue. These are the three big prayers that the classical Buddhist prayers would be, and the Sanskrit of the Pali actually word Buddham Sharanam Gacchami. That's why Buddha so I'm following the Dharma. And Sangam Sharanam Gacchami. Sangha means the assembly of people. I usually monks, or it could be lay people as well. So those are the three big prayer aims of the true Buddhists. And so, and a lot of this work was done by the Orientalist. One that I did show a slide, but I don't have it like that stuff, but transfer it. Primary language literally discovered like a Rosetta Stone. His princess, his 22-year-old, was obviously literally languages. Transcribed the rock physics of the shoulder. Established the language that the Shogun used. Rock physics called Brahmi. Which was kind of more of a colloquial Sanskrit. To be able to find Chinese that sending the messages of Dhamma to King Ptolemy of Egypt. It's such and such thing. for Mesopotamia and what is currently Libya area. So, so they were able to time that yes, he was the contemporary of these guys, whose history is well documented in the Western Egyptian studies. And so there was some dramatic piece of detective work just for the sake of knowledge. And these were the two people that I told about Wilkins, Charles Wilkins. It's about text about India. And the printing press was brought in by the Catholics in Goa in the 70s, 40s, and here, I think it's plus in the Bible, nothing else, but and somewhere along the line, the technology did not catch on in the subcontinent. And so, and the other one was the films that we talked about, and there were countless other people, including some colorful character, including a Hungarian I mentioned, and some students. So it was a whole uh, European scholarship that was responsible for the knowledge of such philosophical it makes a nice audio. And this is the legacy of the things. So it's a really remarkable piece about the intellectual giant. So enough saying about him. Moving on to, and this was this slide that I showed last time, but I did not have time to elaborate. As I mentioned, India has a variety of states. One is called Bihar, which is the foothills of Himalayas, and which is where a lot of the British kingdom were, and died in was born in southern Nepal. So this is the place where the mountainside is called Bihar. And so that is the tie in with the word Bihar that came about. And this was the flow from the Indian Independence Day on the 26th of January. That is the Republic. Sorry, my mistake. Independence was 15th of August. Okay. So now we should get into the bigger topic, which is Tibet. Okay. And a lot of interesting history and culture. I listened to a great courses, DVDs, which is a lot more detailed than one would get to. I know about, but the ancient the region, just to give you some idea, it has been inhabited almost 20,000 plus years, and the varieties of caves of people that live, what was the origin of those people, it's hard to pinpoint. And but the later research shed some light on it. It's more on that. And the varieties of valleys was not that, but that concentration was rock. The one this was the high mountain region called Sandfang Valley and Arlo Valley. And people lived in caves, and then following that, has been occupied and over by Mongols and the Manchus, and they thought Han-Chinese from the north. So all sorts of people have traveled and tried to and have mingled in the Tibetan plateau. And obviously later on, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Rajput, and a smaller, more martial community called Ogras, and last but not the least, the Brits. So, and they, just recall the name of the Hungarian who was interested in Tibet. It was Alexander Somas. He was interested by the people based on the linguistic traveled by road to Tamils and Tibet. on road traditional cultivation. So this, and here's again, but it just blows my mind as to how prolific these people were. Some of us literally pursued quality, pursued for many decades. And I just showed that it was a quiz question that I asked to where but obviously one of you picked out the correct answer. This is the Thai temple, Tampa, Florida, and on the Palm River, on the south side. Now this is Buddhist religion is widespread all over the world, basically primarily Tibet, China, Japan, Sri Lanka, also Southeast Asia, Thailand, and later on the parts of Indonesia have been converted to Islam. This is the big mantra or sacred word that Tibetans would chant to wipe away their sins and good karma. It's a Sanskrit phrase, Om Mani Padme Hum. I think that Tibetan is slightly different. Beside the script, you can see the similarities in the languages. And it's a mantra that translates praise to the Jupiter of the lotus. The Buddha is said to be associated with lotus from the form, every step he took as a child, and lotus, and it arose. So it's a well-known mantra. And again, that goes along with the concept of Dharma, Sangha, and Buddha. And this, just to show that, I showed you the Thai temple, which is so sovereign, people have religious freedom. On the other hand, the contrast with this was in the early 7th century mountainside, 20-foot Buddha, Swat Valley, Pakistan. And unfortunately, this was crazy. The Taliban tried to destroy the explosive and did not succeed. Destroyed by some Thai archaeologists and artists. So this is shows the contrast between fundamentalism and tolerance. And this is obviously we cannot get into the next city of Buddhism to speak with different in Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. Kerala Buddhism, while the Tibetan is called Mahayana. It's the greater part, and at the same time, the Chinese school of Buddhism is slightly different, and that more towards Zen. And so, and even in Tibet, there's a strange mixture that has taken place between a lot of elements of Hinduism, and some and Buddhism. And it's called the Vajrayana. Vajra means trident, that dates back to Paul, in German mythology, Indra in Hindu religious belief system. So this is called the Vajrayana. This is there, so it incorporates not just Buddha or Buddhist teaching, but also varieties of female deities and the good and the bad. A lot of concepts of death are all Hinduism. So it's an interesting mixture. That's all I would say for this. And the eightfold pathway is a very common sense and reasonable thing as anticipated in the slide. At the same time, Buddha's story, most of the familiar with, not to elaborate, but the prince was disillusioned with after the reality check. You see death, suffering, pain, benefit, truth several years. Finally, became enlightened, established that as follower, and then preached for almost 40 years. And his followers, and by that time, royal support from the Toga in the state and migrated to Sri Lanka as well as to Southeast Asia. China, it's not clear as to how the faith was introduced almost right away at the beginning of current era. And the story that I could find was that one of the Chinese emperors of the Buddhism, but early discoverers who came to China and kept written records, and much later, almost 300, 500 years later. And so, how the obviously that the messages and the Taoist the teachings of the faith went along the trade route as opposed to the sea route. So China became Buddhism came to China a lot earlier than to say Southeast Asia. The transmission that occurred in Southeast Asia was along the sea route. And the Tibetan was much later, as we'll talk about it next. It's a very sort of subject. So these are the four noble truths which I was trying to deal with. Is for dukkha means suffering, and then desire, greed, hatred, letting go. And he was preaching this was impermanence. And the idea was to obtain nirvana, being freed from the cycle of birth and rebirth. So and the two big schools of Buddhism have a different part that the Chinese was an Indian philosophy that were the quicker enlightenment, while the Indian route was much more slower and deliberate. Interestingly, the Eightfold Pathway has immensely become popular even in hard sciences, as you can see from the documents that I've written, that when quantum physics or quantum mechanics was born, and the great scientists that tells that it was about the concept of quarks, the subatomic particle. So, and the quark model was the 80% of quark. He also somebody says eightfold pathway, subatomic particle, hadrons, and that quark model is the theoretical concept was verified very quickly, and that led to many gentlemen getting the Nobel Prize. But again, so with this eightfold pathway has a long reach all around the world. And I wasn't too about that some of the stuff that you associate with Buddhism was obviously I found out physical things was something called the mind of mind of artwork or two-dimensional artwork that is connected on the great mythology and with the idea of along with meditation. And there is varieties of scenes from the Tibetan epics depicted as a circle of life circles and squares. It's made with sand, colored sand. And so then basically if one can see that after this adjustment, it is wiped out. Again, showing emphasizing the impermanence. And the other big artwork that is more permanent is brought out upon a special occasion called Kankas, T-H-A-N-K-A. The silk scrolls, which can be very long and stretch almost a football field length. These are various mandalas of ages. And a lot of these were, are collector's items. And this is the basis for gaining wisdom. Very dramatic design and colorful. Now, what to do about today? There's a language now linked directly to the small small structure But the script that they have adopted, they do not have written script for several years. So it's small borrowed from Sanskrit or Pali, the derivative of Sanskrit. They have their own calendar system, which is a lunar based 354 days calendar. And so 2 years ago, they had extra month. I'm talking a little bit about the Tibetan diet. It's a harsh climate, so the yak goat along with dried cheese and from buttermilk. And so there's it's not really fun. It's very hard to grow vegetables, obviously, that region. And it's based on barley as opposed to rice. Tibetan classic dish is called momo, dumplings filled with meat and some vegetables and food stuff. So this is part of this for that. And tea is the big nourishment for giving energy and harsh climate where you require a lot of calories. And the Tibetan tea is old style, is made with salt and butter. And so it provides a good calorie. And again, even though they are Buddhist, they are not totally teetotalers, and alcoholic beverage got changed. Always taste well. I think just gives them diet about trying mountains, terrified to survive on this. Some interesting exports, that come around this was the monk brewer the fungus found in the meadows at very high altitude of about 11,000 mountains. The parasite is breaking down to soil. Does not harm the fungus is digested from the inside. So really a true parasite is the fruiting body comes out of the head. This is the price for varieties of Cappadocia and benefit China and East Asia. And obviously this is hard to find because one of the big exports of the region. And it's quite expensive. Thousands of dollars for this. And there's obviously some benefit to it, otherwise it wouldn't have survived for this many centuries. And varieties of compounds have been isolated based on small proteins and anti-inflammatory or even anti-tumor and isolated by the body. Some of these are small molecule compounds. And there is a reference to that. Those of you who are more scientific minded, I put in a link scientific paper and about that. But at the same time, it's collected from nature, sometimes it's toxic. So this is one of the big exposures. The other big thing was this goes back to the biologist history. But that probably was a little bit of the top. I think it was going by based on the report from Cal. I think it has some small there's a claim mindset. So they may have a mistake with that. So giving them up the reason which is and this was described as assessment. So really, and some of these may have even boxes in high energy. Yeah, and so this has been talked about, and and later on, the ideas continue to be public. So, the varieties of have and this was discovered by the East India Company, and Europeans were at hard time with the people follow the route. So super explorers participated, giving some servants the kind of exploring out thousands of kilometers to explore this region and create some very about information for the company and for the tribe. It was recognized by the Royal Society. Later, this region is rich in natural elements. Yeah, no wonder the tank is so that Amazon branches of gold along with the hydro. And that's some of the finds types of like top the highest mountain, high, it's been described as a south of the Pacific. And somewhat well furnished by various society, but it's not a topographical convention. Great monthly community employees, his observation has added large amount of important knowledge to this application than any other lake brand. Sometimes it's high praise for natives who are generally looked down upon. Let's talk about West. No, not going to talk at all about this West, but we'll talk about this particular West. This is, basic of animal perfume. Ancient perfume base, highly based on West, it's a lot of France. The perfume industry is quite complicated. 5 bases, it's a base. The lowest one is the animal perfume, like is from here or some other animal musk. And then on top, at the top, it's the flowers, the varieties of oils. So, and this is, the features, pleasant odor after it's dilution. It's a complex aroma. Some people obviously like it. And it's very earthy, woody, it's almost like an odor of dead baby skin. And it comes from muscular drums against the trees, collected, and sold, and it's a very prized thing. There's varieties of organic compounds, people. Okay. Now, who were the first Europeans who explored this region? And the credit should go to the Portuguese Jesuits who went by land for first obviously good impression. And this other stuff. Now, obviously, it didn't catch on too well because then the attack out, and the subsequent the few missionaries who established were trying to convert people. They met some really brutal outcome, and some of them were especially Eastern Tibet. Yeah, and, not in a very pleasant way. Another person who's I thought father praise you. Yeah. And he again in the western part of Tibet church. Yeah. And then later on traveled to the central area, another big number 2 city called Shigatse. But the mission finally they were talking about the follow-up city. And there are some next talks about and again that what caused the imagination of Tibetans to approach country as a place to be desired and visited, where there's perpetual happiness. The area of history. Whole idea of by the knowledge of by the sunshine, by the tree, horizon, going towards Shangri-La. That Bala, which is, the one at that concept. So this was, and so it was got onto the popular imagination. So, that you know, book, usually somewhere in, I don't know, Western Tibet. And obviously, it's a very fascinating story. Caught on, not to be outdone, that Chinese have came to current city, Shangri-La, and kept it to tourist attraction. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that maybe was, but it's pretty far. Shangri-La, by Amsterdam. So this is a city that they do not from. They're one of the one tourist attractions. And so this is, now this was, I maybe just gone after the fact that in this case, the series talks about the search for Shangri-La. So this episode is worthwhile simply summarizes all of these things that I will talk about from a very scholarly perspective of legitimate historians. Interestingly, if anything that can survive, there are people who are trying to make a buck out of it. There was a book that in the early 50s published, caught on yesterday, the story about a Western person who went and was spent time in Ghana and the whole South and became a lighter, you know, a lot of open. Yeah. So this was a story, and people started believing it. The autobiography of the Lama, it's called and now turns out that this was just all a made up story. There was no good box and brown box. Turned out that he was a fiddle hostage, Devon, and he was exposed later on by some real Tibet authority people. But still, the book continues to sell even though it's after its was exposed. Now again, we showed the geography of Tibet region earlier, but this is the Tibet part of the region. But the area that focused on other side is the part of the Greater Tibet, and now this is not showing this, but this part of the what is said in this part in Bhutan, that's probably China, so the Tibet Empire extended all the way from modern day Kashmir and Ladakh from inside the modern day China. So this just gives you the idea of it. And now the Beijing after the Chinese takeover, you know, labor and Tibetan autonomous region. So at least in principle, they have their religious autonomy, but the majority of political and economic decisions is done by China. And again, the South of the what I talked about, and the Tibetan population is about 6 million, but only half of them live in central Tibet. A huge number is in India, and after the exile of the Dalai Lama, and scattered all over the world. And some obviously vast number are in Nepal, Southeast Asia, so on and so forth. Now, the genetic origin of Tibet is of interest that the Chinese one that believe that they be very un-Chinese, but after the discovery of genetic analysis, so recently Neanderthal and Homo sapiens, another species, earlier species of humans called Denisovians, was discovered based on chemical remains and analysis studies like India. The biggest huge flow from that population as high 6% of the population being is of Denisovian origin. So this the roots can be really traced by Homo sapiens who migrated out of Africa, as well as Denisovans who came down south from Siberia and Central Asia and Mongolia. So they have natural hierarchy to fit up. And so the roots go back to almost 40,000 years. There are varieties of meats which deal with how they're adapted to low concentration of oxygen. So that is, it was the RBC protein from hemoglobin, and not necessarily higher hemoglobin, but the theology is more adapted to extract more oxygen from the same body. So they're also thoroughly shifted. And a lot of this work was done by Finnish scientists named Svante Paavo, who received the Nobel Prize in 2022 as solo Nobel Prize. So his work was very groundbreaking. But again, we're going along. And the name to it is, it's hard to think what origin is. And then varieties of haplogroup analysis have been done. And again, so that dates back to their origin or habitation goes back to almost 40,000 a longer years. Preceding the Ice Age. So they share ancestry with people from East Asia, Central Asia. So it's a very genetic mixture that it's, and there's clearly not necessarily similar to the lowland Indian torture. So much so that the natural adaptation has taken place even in Tibetan women. They're largely uterine arteries, so their babies are about low birth weight, but they're still able to extract enough oxygen, but they don't have a high infant mortality. While on the other hand, the Chinese high mortality. And they, again, that's how a lot of Tibetan history before Buddhism and modern China. And it's like, that's how Britain could until about 800 years. So a lot of stories that were told by bards to memorize a variety of stories of Paul the King and fighting the demons and other kingdoms. The usual story of the good versus evil kind of thing. And that's transmitted orally by a variety of bards and child the village, the site. Some of these are extremely long, as you can see there, when you compare to the Western classics of India and Odyssey, Hindu classics of Ramayana and Mahabharata. These are, and then, and then a variety of words, Mongolian words, etc. Tibetan words, the Raki words, finally, modern China is doing systematic research, cataloging some of these stories. Others are good because they're cultural heritage. The next thing being moved on to the pages, there were other different for Buddhism. And there were presentations of various schools of topic. States falling and developed. So, for instance, school that then it's later on, one school went up to royal support of the Khans, the Khan, his descendant, that support the Hindu, when he wanted the Dalai Lama, formed the dominant other things. Now, earlier religion of Tibet was called Buddhism. Strategy will end, but it's pronounced Buddhism. And this was 3 days Buddhism in the area for in northern India, or Kashmir, Santa. So it involves mostly spirits and deities, sacrifice, and that was organized in blue versus yellow after arrival of the but then they start with that basically, so it's more colorful cars. And again, we're fairly organized there. Each member monastery follows the Tibet after, and a lot of them were damaged through the cultural revolution. And there's still, a lot of monasteries that do better. Some of this, unlike the Dalai Lama, and it's follow his food was not hereditary, but eventually. And so this is the symbolism, similar but not same. You can see the swastika which is backward. So swastika has a long history. It's and again, so that Buddhism entered around 7th or 8th century. Then gradually influenced went. And some of the parts of it that destroyed by the diet and stuff. But
You can only download the one.
moderate because that's
We both can share in the family.
but like this
Okay.
different but very similar somehow. And it spread along the place. Now the actual real written documentation that is available to scholars is by Chinese traveled by land route, China, Western China, the book of the world, what is called in Pakistan, diversity, so that's the pillar, the one that our culture, state that
Is there any?
scripture, and very reliable record.
Still,
Archaeology fall almost 1,000 after. And I followed that 700 current era, another cellular also from that. We went back about and this is well known probably as I mentioned earlier, this may come to surprise you that Tibet was supposed to be recognized. So Tibet, so the name is academic, along with the Chinese emperor, so, and so this was, they took on and defeated things. A treaty was negotiated, and they were divided by the frontiers from the occupation. The east is Great China, it's Tibet. So neither of them is war. This is still the rest of that still right in front of the Himalaya Palace. And the might and surprise of the courage, the Chinese authorities have not destroyed it. The pillar is stone pillar, one side of the thing was separate, the block. It's back to 8.1. Now, Dharma was the founder of the Vedic water that talks about all state. Now, a lot more to say about Sons of Gamble. He was not just powerful, but again, it was thought to make alliance with two big kingdoms, from South Nepal and on the east of China. Obviously, the marriage alliance was scripted, initially was turned down upon, but after some military defeat, the Chinese did agree and send the princess to get married to him. And she brought varieties of Chinese art, artisans to Tibet and brought very expensive. The same time from South also, the Nepali princess brought some art, Buddhist statues. So, for both were the political religious in the both was kept on. And this is, shows that it's more about something about Rasa, goes the Rasa, so, and we talked about the crowd. So he was the first time I think it's story about it. But then again, Chinese have readopted her after frowning upon religion early as showing how long the cultural traditions have kept on. So much so that it's a big opera made of the life, with lavish production, and it's very popular. So this is the scene from the opera about the princess wedding, obviously, but popular. So there's a good propaganda machine for the famous origin. And this is the thing with Johann Kepler, a red product of the power guide. A lot of these things are very architects, craftsmen themselves. And it is called, but that's where the Hindu culture segued into it. And, and the varieties of Buddhist sculptures are from the times for life of Buddha. And this is a famous Patala Palace. The biggest structure on top of the hills, the prince of residence of the Dalai Lama, 7th century. That was after the damage it was rebuilt.
These are definitely not because any dates where I should not come.
Seat of the government. And there's this white palace. Thousands of women, and at the same time serves as a resting place of tomb. The Lama, one of the powerful Lamas, was 13, into that possibly a 3-story high, covered with gold and various precious stones. So it's a masterpiece of the world. Some 30 and was what somebody got it. And again, so this is much more classical Buddhism. There's a good karma. Not for human deities and beings. And later on, some of the other different thinking that developed think the basic concept was just that one of the founders of Gandhi School, the guy named Rappa, said to have a super magical power, okay, and flew across from mountainside to India. And so, now a lot of this stuff. Depending upon some of these things, and a lot of connections. We see royal support gives them a leg up. The other is find you know about current pages. And there are varieties of rules that come from India and really put the religious faith on more systematic basis. And at the same time, we have to very much stuff. Earlier, there were a lot of struggle for power into each school would dominate the game. So sometimes, some of these areas do not have royal support and quite fell into less popularity. And some of these scholars that came from Bengal, had a lot to do with establishing temples and monuments. For example, the school started and then again, the schools were fragmented early, but after the threat of Genghis Khan and his descendants, it was forced to unite varieties of more powerful kings and lamas arose and trying to keep from within themselves. So the Europa again traveled with India and a big statement variety of texts and some of the and obviously a lot of this was this gold had a lot to do with it. They were traveling to India, work with various Indian scholars and Turkey. And this is psychiatric philosophy. And some of these has a very scientific thought practices, which were again in practice from Bengal. But in Bengal, the female deity was worshipped called Kali, and some of the so-called dark occult practices, which are part of the Tibetan activities as well, and the varieties of and they tried to enlighten with so-called dark practices, with drinking, with indulging in sex, and trying to liberate themselves, in a different route. So again, it's a different way of approaching the game to look more virtuous. Then we see from the other scientific by the hats that they wore, yellow hat versus red. And the variety which collects the debates that took place. And this was a lot of Socratic methods about the religious teaching. Schools lamas started with these state sponsorship with descendants of Genghis Khan, one called Sultan Khan. And he was considered, one who lived in the South line. Surprising that some of Mongolia is a country. So the varieties of found some rocks and sharp rocks. So that's again, he has a lot of favor or support from uh, the Chinese descendants. And one of his first disciples, the Prabhupada, was a guy, who grew up, and he founded the monasteries to the east, the along with this, and then since then, the tradition of reincarnation has recognizing a small child with the, as with endowed facilities of Lama and holiness, they can practice. And this was, the start of it. And the varieties of Lamas, as you can see that the continuity is with reborn concept is a very strong foundation. Not of which, like there were a number of popes, there are current, like the popes. Not all of them were scholars and were as powerful. In two or three that mentioned that it is called the 13th Dalai Lama and the modern one as a pope. Some of the other ones where, health issues, they're not exactly, a religious soul. Something like this. Some guy was more interested in, drinking and carousing with women. So it was not all, everybody was not quite pious or celebrate similar to Pope theology, where the sixth one, where he had to go left the poet, not interested, and the very reason that the James Fifth was a scholar, but not just the fifth officer. So he was, and these are the big ones to the last time. And these are powerful, right? How the one side is on studying scripture, and at the same time are involved in administration the whole region. So they were the elite, so to speak. At the same time, they were, very capable of defending themselves and very rightly afraid of the outsiders. Did not associate previously with them. At the same time, the other side, the other side of the asset, the parallel number two, which is got ahead, Panchen Lama, was also again chosen by obtaining science and was reborn. And so there were two, but verified each other's scholarliness and legitimate reincarnated birth. So they were like a president and vice president. And this is the other side. Slightly called NASA is somewhere here. Yeah, I'd say it's somewhere here. And that in this figures largely after the invasion of communist China, because the Panchen Lama at that time supported the Chinese takeover of Eastern Tibet. Now, obviously, the British Empire, all these Indian companies, was interested in pursuing trade routes and opening China right Tibet. I mean, they realized that Tibet did not have a whole lot to offer, but it was a closed kingdom and it was difficult to enter. But finally, they were able to get entrance to the Panchen Lama in Sikkim, and was received favorably with the sixth Panchen Lama presented the ceremonial silk scarf with the Scottish Institute of represented boom. And this was the imaginary drawing later on printed translated about the 18th century by artists in Kettle. And we already talked about the American. But again, the British, if they come to decide to stay, as long as they avoided the agent, ensure that they kept an eye on it, kept the other people, like the Chinese and the Russians, out. And this is the full Scottish official. Was the first one to tell mission to Tibet. And again, so the people working with Warren Hastings with the son of rich tobacco merchant. One of his brothers was a plantation owner in Virginia. And later on, you know, in the early 20th century, where it's been a competition, very different story, the region, find nothing by so, and military man named Francis Young husband, traveled by land, first to Bukhara, and then later on to Tibet, you know, and that was a very small regiment, and then, at that time, you know, they did not really, they were trained by Pedro, the Lama at that time, the Russian Mongolian, who was his advisor, and that really sent shockwave to the East India Company. And they decided that, well, the Russians were getting too close to the conflict. That's now led to kick them out of it. And obviously, some patients from Calcutta, the capital, London, you know, took months. So they were, you know, obviously they were able to decide to take on and Tibet. And finally, they decided that the Tibetans did not respond and to any way. They decided they have to decide to molest. And the great Francis Young was sent, was a friend of the viceroy at that time, or person, was sent with a mission of, you know, small amount of Indian and British soldiers to march on Tibet, open up Lhasa. And initially, you know, they were met by the Asian army, which was poorly equipped, poorly armed. And, and it's not clear as to when we started the fighting. But obviously, the British battalion very quick work off, but the British wiped out. The British relied on the faith, thought that they could, you know, prayers and other things were independent, and obviously their faith was quickly shattered. And even in the face of huge assault, they did not turn back and fight. They simply turned back, simply walked away. Our friend Carnage was so one-sided that even the Britishers who were there, you know, were totally aghast that this was not a war, this was just a massacre. And at the same time, the Tibetans, you know, were surprised by the humane way that the British treated them. That they offered them medical help to the wounded and were allowed to return, and they were not killed as the tradition was. The war had easy. So that was no, that just grudgingly the British earned some respect, and they made the Lhasa, but obviously there was not much to be gained or traded. They were disillusioned with the so-called history of Tibet was broken. The Lhasa was dirty, filthy, and you know, and the people were totally, you know, frozen in time, so to speak. So, you know, the illusion to big material that the East was broken. And this was the Lama who was gave the Lama. And again, you know, having been supported or protected by, you know, the Mongol king. Partly, you know, they tribute their relationship with the Chinese emperor as well. But the biggest thing that backfired on them was having a Russian advisor, Admiral Doizhir, in 1879, and then led to the British invasion of Tibet. And the 13th was an interesting talk for him. He stabilized Tibet, and he finally, encountering with the Western Chinese, realized that Tibet was stuck and frozen in time after, and obviously sought some assistance and made some friendly gestures with the Russians. And at the same time, you know, there are varieties of things that sent out. And the and he's trying to get help from the Russians, again, because and, and after the invasion of the Brits in 1904, he fled to Mongolia and for almost 4 years, stayed there, and finally returned in 1907 again. And at that time, the China just a part of Eastern Tibet, it's called Ondo. And this was the first encounter of the American ambassador in China with the Tibetan Lamas, then with Rockwell. And again, now they were trying to get help from both sides, but the British were not interested in helping Tibet because they did not want to alienate China. And again, the efforts of modernization were a good start in a sense. He sent, finally some boys to study in Britain, and they learned, went to British school and were trained in conversing with British, and this was one of the things that come. And after the death of 13, it was kept secret for a number of years. And the process where the various ministers and chancellors were starting secret search all over Tibet for the person. A small village in Tibet, a 2-year-old boy, seemed like a worthy candidate for reincarnation. And the tests were given by varieties of things. The personal items of the 13 were offered, and how the child would select. So the search was time-consuming, and the 2-year-old seemed to give it varieties of tests, like he identified the less attractive walking stick, and was bold, and was able to identify, even though he did not know the local dialect of Lhasa. So somewhere along the line, they attempted that he is the reincarnation. So think that that's what we want to do. That to get him out of that, his partner of his time was consoled by the Chinese Muslim warrior. So the ministers in Lhasa had to pay him, a heavy sort of bribe or subsidy to get this boy out. And finally, it was a long, hard travel from the eastern village. He went to Lhasa, and obviously his parents were allowed to come with them, and they were given, they were very pleasant people, and they were given, a land, and but at the same time, were looked down upon by the landed gentry aristocrats in Tibet. So again, the class structure was very much. His older brother was with him, and then and it took us almost from the 4 onwards to the 20. The very but strictly religious on his own, able to study, and was fascinated with some of the Western technology and inventions, such as like the clocks and even the cars that were imported by the 13th. So he was able to try to, was curious about it. The people who met him, just learned that there was something special about this, that the future is around. At the same time, with the opening of the introduction of Western structure, the Brits, invited some of the lamas, and now again, put in perspective, the time of this was the mountaineering was the popular book was written by the Epic of Everest. Small film was made as well. At the same time, the Tibetans were looked down upon as the third-class citizens, and the process of delousing children, and the lamas who were invited to it, you made like a skull exhibit on stage, by the dancing lama, so that religious sensitivities were kept upon. And when that information traveled to Tibet, again, obviously they were deeply hurt, and they decided to put a pause on planning on the And now this time, this varieties of mountains that going on, and some people fought, for reporting, and the newspapers were a big business, and some of the reporters, followed this at great risk to their personal health. By this time, it was like a European craze for this mountain climbing, not just Brits, but Germans, French, and Italians. And some of the Italian scholars, came to Quebec, and again, they did some very scholarly studies at the same time. And this continued right up till, the days of Mussolini. And he became a pride of national pride, down the mountain, successfully conquered it. So it was a big race. Now, I mentioned earlier when we talked about the very transformative use and different converted child to Britain to study Sanskrit Persian. And later on, taught at the University of Punjab in 1907, and traveled to Tibet and done various archaeological discoveries. Able to enter discovery of what's called the Mongol cave, which is considered called the cave of thousand Buddhas. Discovered some of the original religious texts, scriptures. Okay. And he also traveled, at great length into Central Asia. So he was an explorer of no comparison. He went on his own for a long time. And, did a long his career. 80 years. That's greatest discovery was the library cave. Uh, in the, and these dates back to the 14th, 11th century. First, should probably order. So these were sealed off, because of the Muslim invasion that took place in Central Asia. Not only this religious text, history, mathematics, folklore, so it's a really cultural document, including of some other religions as well as ours.
An extra $2.
Chinese, and these were bodies of the local lamas to keep. A lot of them were sent to Britain and France. And it also has a depiction of it. So it's really a big window into the culture of that region. And I already talked about the Dan Sita was considered one of the earliest. Right on the face of this, one thing that you mentioned was, the mountain climbing sometimes backfired. German mountain and going on to Karakoram and Menda Harbor. Right started the Second World War. They were arrested and sent to prison. That India. Somehow escaped the prison. Lhasa, entered Lhasa, were introduced, and obviously they had some gold money hidden, so they were able to buy form of the clothes and where human audience with the Dalai Lama. Somewhere along the line, he was only 11 or 12, but became very friends, and the Karkar became very friends with the Dalai Lama, and he was coaching mathematics. Behind fixing a projector and keeping him abreast of the very needs of the world. He spent several years in Quebec, 7 years doing that. And he criticized, they suggested Dalai Lama to get out of there and same time, we saw Tibet forward in this work, and we, really legitimately criticized the monastic treatment system. And he did, that saw that people that how dirty Tibet was, so no, there was no toilet, no man above, so he made some clear cut, clear-eyed observations of the region. And this is the real country, Parliament country. And this is a fully started Brad Pitt. But after the defeat of the Clipchamp, again, the Chinese government took over. Their policy was to claim the region, which they typically thought there. So the relationship was differently interpreted by the Tibetans as well as by the Chinese. Chinese always thought that because the tribute system, and they were part of China. On the other hand, Tibetans thought that they were the religious left to their own devices. And with the patronage of for the other wars, emperors of China. But they were not. Chairman Mao decided to take over parts of China, and the Tibetans were outclassed and totally under this false impression that their prayers would save them. Alas, that is not the case. And this was again communication lines were very poor. Only the British telegraph operator was there. And again, he got out by his enemy. In fact, I think he was arrested. And was curious and driven there in China and was released later on to Hong Kong. And so the British radio office, the broadcasting was all it was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the idea that the mantra guards are on our side was not going to help them against the thousands of Chinese soldiers. And again, so after this, somebody like the Dalai Lama reach him, and obviously, modernization, education, health, the Dalai Lama was really impressed with the early success of communism, and proposed what is known as 17-point agreement with China, and authorized, and initially was impressed with the Chinese person. And the Chinese, to their credit, people that would get gloves in the army, the air, and allowed to continue to do these practices. On the other hand, that eastern parts out of the region, the calm region that they take over, obviously, they abolished the feudal system. And the peasants were happy with getting land. But subsequently, they were very quickly disillusioned by the lack of lesser crops, collectivization, which failed, and a lot of misery, and a lot of them were imprisoned and were treated very harshly. And when we traveled back, the Dalai Lama's eyes opened up, but by that time, it was too late for him to, get out of the strong arm of that. And this was there. Set the telegram for and on one hand, giving false said that the religion would be left alone, but at the same time, the advice is that religion is poison. So, but he was rather naive and Christian, and so did the Indian government, because India had negotiated treaty with French still out of 5 points of coexistence, but again that backfired. So it was not that easy. Failure of politicians to underestimate the Chinese strength and power for taking over. And there were, so the socialism, which was accepted earlier, did not work out too well. Now, this is interesting. I just found out how French journalist, was the best. You know, with your holiness, my I was always, you know, yeah, and so was I. So it's interesting how communism from outside, in theory, it is great, but in practice, it does not work. For many. And again, the slides are out, stuff in the sutra, which is, yeah, this is, it's a professional wisdom, but that kind of itself, sorry, and so this is something I've already talked about. And 13 had given warning that if they're not able to protect our own country, everyone who's supposed with us teaching will be wiped out is completely, not in their names to remain. So that prophetic words in 1932, you know, they could have. So again, you know, by became part of the event became part of the Cold War strategy. And even though the request from Dalai Lama was kind of not paying much heed, and finally the CIA made some half-hearted attempt by training some militants to fight guerrilla warfare, and they trained them in a modern warfare. But again, you know, they were outgunned and outmatched by the Chinese. And Dalai Lama's brother was advocating independence, while on the other hand, Dalai Lama himself wanted to compete for was under the wrong person as the Chinese were allowed it. And obviously the cultural revolution, you know, the religion was totally wiped out and thousands of monasteries were destroyed. With varieties of purpose displaced from time to time, were cut down. 1987, 1989, and again 2008.
In the northeast of India has become known all over the world, for it was here that India received the Dalai Lama after his flight from Tibet. India offered the God King of Buddhism a safe refuge from the communist Chinese. To Tezpur flocked reporters representing the press of all the free world. By jeeps, the God King and his entourage traveled the last stage of their perilous 300-mile journey. No one could have told from his unruffled bearing, as he was greeted by high Indian officials and presented with the white scarf, token of friendship, that the Dalai Lama had been in mortal danger since he left Lhasa. The 23-year-old spiritual head of the 500 million Buddhists throughout the Far East confirmed that he had been forced to leave his capital. His mother, center wearing dark glasses, sister and other relatives had accompanied him from Lhasa. They were all to rest for a short time at the circuit house. The bearded Lakungwa, former premier of Tibet, but exiled for the last 5 years, came from Kalimpong to meet the Dalai Lama. For all Buddhists are united in revering the God King. Arrangements had already been made to convey the holy man, his relatives and council to Mussoorie, more than 600 miles to the west. The family party numbered the Dalai Lama's brother. Meanwhile, preparations were afoot for the long rail journey that lay ahead, a drain on the catering resources at Tezpur. After his arrival at Circuit House, the Dalai Lama took the opportunity to give his blessing to the vast assembly of more than 7,000 who had converged upon Tezpur in the hope of receiving him. It has astounded Buddhists throughout the Far East that the Chinese government should have apparently gone out of its way to affront the Dalai Lama. And though the God King appears to bear his oppressors no ill will, all who know the Oriental world are convinced that in attacking Lhasa, the Peking government has committed an error likely to have lasting consequences. The Buddhist world prays for the day when the Dalai Lama will be restored to his earthly capital.
So that's an interesting, you know, British fascinating film, which I could not show in the past. For time's sake. and again, so then finally, as with the passing of years, Dalai Lama has, grown up on the idea of turning to Tibet and independence. Trying to make Tibet part of the again, autonomy device, which will perhaps, again, the second more human cause of Tibet is the peace zone, not likely to succeed. And his suggestions are very practical suggestions that government protection, avoiding nuclear arms and restricted, and obviously, word brilliant. And at the same time, the Pancha Lama is of opposite member has died. And in some of his interpretation that he said earlier, people was suppressed. So both the leaders have been disillusioned with what has taken place. So this is, the first two Dalai Lamas, were posthumously, that's why they started with the third, by the way. And so, but we already talked about a lot of these. This is just summarizing the points that we already talked about. The Nobel Prize, and the protests are still continuing. Unlike the Islamic terrorists, that protest is not for the things that we see. So it's relatively small, but still a pretty sacrificial or brutal way of finishing. And again, the Chinese continue to treat the Tibetans rather harshly. And again, as they've done, it's like what the Nazi Germany did, they are re-educating the younger population that are being separated, just like what the Australians did to the Aborigines or the Canadians did to the Native Americans. And they are being sent to boarding schools and indoctrinated with Chinese culture. At the same time, there are some good things that the Chinese have successfully done. And the biggest one was that the last singing the railroad, that was the only railroad that was oxygen available. So they've come a long way. And the further plans along with the Belt Road was to establish a land route from a smaller city to Tibet or Hero to the border of Nepal. There is already a rail route from Nepal to India. And so this is obviously the education and but a lot of this is huge number of Han Chinese are moving to Tibet. And so I think that this and your stop at this side. And hopefully see you folks next time. Thank you. Bye bye.